What if your greatest wound was your greatest assignment? What if the woman who failed to love you properly was chosen by your soul before you ever drew breath? And what if the emptiness you've carried, the hunger that no relationship can fill, the ache of never being enough, what if all of that was not your punishment, but your initiation into something sacred? You see, there is a conspiracy of silence around this truth. We are told that mothers are supposed to nurture, protect, and unconditionally love. We are told that if she didn't, something is wrong with us, that we are too much, too little, too broken to deserve what every child should receive. But what if that story is the lie that keeps you small? What if your soul knew exactly what it was doing when it chose her wounded womb as your first home? Not because you deserved her pain, but because her brokenness would forge the exact conditions needed for your awakening. Because some souls don't come to earth to be coddled and comfortable. They come to be catalysts. They come to transform lineages. They come to break chains that have held their bloodline captive for generations. Your wounded mother was not your mistake. She was your mission, and the sooner you understand this, the sooner you can stop trying to heal her and start claiming the power that her wounds were meant to awaken within you. This wound you carry, it's older than your name, older than your first memory, older than the first time you felt unloved. It lives in your bones like an ancient song, a frequency of longing that hums beneath everything you do. You feel it when you're alone, when you're in love, when you achieve something beautiful and there's no one who truly sees you celebrate. It's the wound of the unmothered child, and it runs deeper than psychology can reach. Your mother carried this same wound, and her mother before her, and hers before that. It's the wound of women who were taught to be strong instead of soft, practical instead of present, surviving instead of thriving. It's the wound of little girls who learned too early that love was something you earned, not something you were born deserving. When you emerged from her body, you were pure light looking for reflection. You were divine innocence seeking recognition. You were a soul hoping to be welcomed home. But she had forgotten how to see divinity. Her own light had been dimmed so early, so completely, that when she looked at you, she could only see through the lens of her own unhealed pain. Maybe she loved you in actions, but not in presence. Maybe she provided, but never protected your tender heart. Maybe she was physically there, but emotionally absent, going through the motions of motherhood, while her soul remained locked away in its own survival chamber. And so you learned to love the same way, with conditions, with distance, with the part of yourself that remained safely hidden. The child in you created stories to make sense of this. I'm too much. I'm not enough. Love hurts. I have to earn my place. These stories became your operating system, the invisible code running in the background of every relationship, every dream, every moment you stood at the edge of your own greatness and stepped back instead of forward. But here's what your child mind couldn't understand then. Her inability to love you the way you needed wasn't about your lovability. It was about her capacity. And her capacity was limited not by choice, but by the wounds she inherited and never healed. She was giving you what she had, not what you deserved. And what she had was the residue of her own unmothered places. This is the ancient wound, the passing down of emotional absence from mother to child, generation after generation, until someone decides to break the chain. Until someone looks at the inheritance of pain and says, "It ends with me." Until someone chooses to become the mother they never had, not just to their own children, but to the wounded child within themselves. You are that someone. You've always been that someone. Your soul knew it before you were born, which is why it chose her. Not for comfort, but for awakening. Not for ease, but for evolution. Because breaking ancestral patterns requires someone strong enough to feel the full weight of the wound and still choose love. Someone brave enough to go into the darkness and bring back light. She was your first mirror, and like all mirrors, she could only reflect what she was capable of seeing. If she couldn't see her own worth, she couldn't reflect yours. If she couldn't access her own tenderness, she couldn't offer it to you. If she couldn't feel safe in love, she couldn't create safety for your heart to unfold. This doesn't excuse her, it explains her, and there's a profound difference. Understanding this changes everything because it moves you out of the victim story and into the hero's journey. You are no longer the child waiting for her to become someone she never learned how to be. You become the one who learns what she couldn't, who heals what she wouldn't, who becomes what your lineage has been calling for across generations. Carl Jung taught us about the mother complex, the internal blueprint of what mother means, carved into our psyche through early experience. If your blueprint is one of absence, criticism, engulfment, or emotional volatility, that blueprint becomes the template for how you experience the feminine in all its forms, your relationship with nurturing, with receiving, with your own intuition, with the earth itself. But here's the revolutionary truth Jung also revealed. These complexes are not permanent fixtures. They are patterns that can be recognized, understood, and transformed. The work of individuation, becoming who you truly are beyond the conditioning, requires you to consciously examine these internal blueprints and choose which ones serve your highest becoming. Your wounded mother lives inside you as an internalized voice. She speaks up when you're about to receive love, whispering, "You don't deserve this." She appears when you're about to shine, saying, "Who do you think you are?" She emerges when you're about to trust, warning, "Everyone leaves." This internal mother is often more critical and withholding than your actual mother ever was, because she's made of your child self's interpretation of her wounds. But alongside this wounded internal mother lives another presence, the wise, nurturing, unconditionally loving mother you were always meant to have. She exists in the quantum field of possibility, in the archetypal realm where perfect love lives. And here's the sacred secret. You can choose which internal mother to feed, which voice to follow, which energy to embody. Every time you speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism, you're feeding the wise mother within. Every time you hold yourself through pain instead of abandoning yourself, you're strengthening her presence. Every time you choose to see your sensitivity as a gift instead of a burden, you're activating the mother who knows your true worth. This is the alchemy. This is how the wound becomes the womb of your rebirth. Not by changing her, not by getting her to finally see you, but by developing the eyes to see yourself. By becoming so skilled at mothering your own soul that her approval becomes irrelevant to your sense of worth. And as you do this work, something extraordinary happens. The mirror begins to change, not because she transforms, but because you do. When you stop looking to her for validation, you stop triggering her own wounds around being needed. When you stop trying to heal her, you stop activating her defenses. When you stop being the little girl who needs mommy's love, you can sometimes see the wounded little girl she still is. From this place, forgiveness becomes possible. Not the kind that excuses or enables, but the kind that liberates. You forgive her not for her sake, but for yours. You forgive the little girl she was who never learned how to love properly. You forgive the woman she became who did the best she could with the tools she inherited. And most importantly, you forgive yourself for believing that her limitations were your truth. Before you incarnated, your soul stood at the threshold between worlds and made a choice that would shape everything. You looked at the lineage you were about to enter, saw the wounds that had been passed down for generations, and said, "I will be the one to transform this. I will carry the light into this darkness. I will love what has been unloved back to wholeness." This wasn't martyrdom. This was mastery. Your soul recognized that some wounds can only be healed from the inside by someone who carries the genetic memory, but also carries the consciousness to transform it. You volunteered to be the bridge between what was and what could be. Think about it. If you had been born to a perfectly loving mother, would you have developed the same depth of empathy, the same fierce independence, the same ability to recognize authentic love from counterfeit? Would you have the same drive to heal, to grow, to become more than your circumstances? Would you be reading these words right now, seeking to understand the deeper meaning of your pain? Our wounds are not random, they are strategic. They point you toward your purpose like a compass pointing north. The places where you were hurt are the same places where you're meant to heal others. The love you didn't receive is the love you're meant to give. The mother you needed is the mother you're meant to become, first to yourself, then to the world. This is why certain people are drawn to you. This is why you can sense pain in others that they haven't even acknowledged yet. This is why you have such a deep longing to nurture, to heal, to create safety for wounded hearts. You're not just seeking to fill your own emptiness, you're answering a soul calling that began before you were born. But here's where many people get stuck. They think their spiritual assignment is to fix their mother, to heal the family system, to change everyone around them. They become the emotional caretakers, the peacekeepers, the ones who sacrifice themselves trying to love everyone into wholeness. This is not your assignment. This is your wounding trying to disguise itself as purpose. Your real assignment is much more radical, to become so whole within yourself that you break the energetic pattern of woundedness in your lineage, to love yourself so completely that you stop unconsciously seeking that love from people who can't give it, to heal so thoroughly that you no longer attract relationships that mirror your original wound. When you do this, you become a tuning fork of a different frequency. You begin to magnetize people who can meet you in wholeness rather than neediness. You start creating the kind of love you always wanted instead of recreating the kind you always got. You become the ancestor your descendants will thank, the one who changed everything that came after. This doesn't mean you have to cut off all contact with your mother or family. It means you have to cut off the energetic cords that keep you trapped in the old dynamic. You stop showing up as the wounded child hoping to finally get what you needed. You stop making her responsible for your healing. You stop waiting for her to change so you can be free. Instead, you show up as the healed version of yourself. You interact from your wholeness, not your woundedness. You respond from your wisdom, not your triggers. And sometimes this creates space for something new to emerge between you. Sometimes seeing you healed gives her permission to heal too. But even if it doesn't, you're still free. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from the expectations and patterns of your family system. It's not rebellion, it's evolution. It's not rejection, it's transcendence. You're not abandoning your mother, you're graduating from the role of being her healing project. And in this graduation, you discover something profound. The love you were seeking was never in her hands to give. It lives in the quantum field, in the space between heartbeats, in the silence between thoughts. It's the love that created you, that animates you, that will never leave you because it is you. Once you remember this, everything changes. You stop begging for crumbs and claim your seat at the feast. You stop trying to earn love and start embodying it. You stop looking for someone to complete you and realize you were never incomplete to begin with. This is the spiritual assignment, to remember who you are beyond the wound and to live from that remembrance. Deep within your psyche lives the mother you were always meant to have. She has been waiting patiently for you to call her forward, to invite her into conscious relationship, to let her parent the wounded child who still lives in the chambers of your heart. This inner mother is not a fantasy or a spiritual bypassing technique. She is an archetypal reality, as real as your breath, as present as your heartbeat. She knows exactly what you needed that you didn't receive. She knows the words you longed to hear, the comfort you craved, the safety you deserved. She carries the blueprint of perfect attunement, the template of unconditional love, the medicine your soul has been seeking since your first breath. And she has been waiting for you to mature enough, to heal enough, to become conscious enough to receive her gifts. This awakening doesn't happen overnight. It's a courtship, a gradual building of trust between the adult you and the archetypal mother within. You begin by noticing her voice, the one that speaks with infinite patience when you make mistakes, that celebrates your smallest victories, that sees your beauty even when you feel most broken. You begin to distinguish her voice from the wounded internal mother who criticizes and withholds. Learning to parent yourself is not selfish, it's revolutionary. Every time you speak to yourself with the kindness you wish you had received, you're rewiring decades of neural programming. Every time you comfort yourself through pain instead of numbing or abandoning yourself, you're healing generations of emotional neglect. Every time you celebrate your accomplishments without waiting for external validation, you're breaking the cycle of seeking worth outside yourself. The inner mother knows how to hold space for all of your emotions without trying to fix or change them. She doesn't say, "Don't cry," or "Get over it," or "You're being too sensitive." She says, "I see you, I feel you, your pain is valid and you're not alone in it." She becomes the witness you never had, the sanctuary you always needed, the unconditional love that was your birthright. But awakening the inner mother also means confronting the inner critic who has been posing as protection. This voice, often a distorted echo of your actual mother's fears and limitations, convinced you that being hard on yourself would keep you safe, that self-criticism would motivate you to be better, that withholding love from yourself would somehow earn it from others. The inner critic must be understood, not destroyed. She developed as a survival mechanism, trying to anticipate and prevent rejection by rejecting yourself first. She means well, but her methods are outdated. The work is to thank her for trying to protect you and then gently establish new boundaries. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I don't need that kind of protection anymore. I can handle love, I can handle success, I can handle being seen. As the inner mother grows stronger and the inner critic softens, you begin to experience something miraculous. Self-compassion, not as a concept or practice, but as a lived reality. You start treating yourself like someone you actually love. You make choices that honor your well-being. You surround yourself with people who see your worth. You create a life that reflects your value rather than your wounds. This internal shift changes everything external. When you're no longer seeking mothering from romantic partners, you attract people who can meet you as equals. When you're no longer trying to earn love through people-pleasing, you discover relationships based on mutual respect. When you're no longer abandoned by your own harsh inner voice, you stop tolerating abandonment from others. The awakened inner mother also knows something profound about boundaries. She doesn't build walls, she creates sacred space. She says no to what diminishes you and yes to what feeds your soul. She protects your energy like the precious resource it is. She refuses to let betray yourself for the comfort of others or dim your light to make others feel safe in their darkness. And perhaps most importantly, she knows the difference between healing and fixing. She doesn't try to heal your mother, your family, or your past relationships. She knows that everyone must choose their own healing journey. Instead, she focuses her energy on what she can actually change: your relationship with yourself, your capacity to receive love, your ability to create the life your soul came here to live. This is the sacred activism of inner work, changing the world by changing yourself, healing the collective wound by healing your individual heart, breaking generational patterns by refusing to pass them on. When you embody the love you never received, you become a beacon for others who are still seeking. When you heal your mother wound from the inside out, you give permission for others to do the same. You are the generational curse breaker. You are the pattern interrupt. You are the one your ancestors have been praying for, even if they didn't know how to pray for healing while they were alive. This role is not given lightly, and it's not for the faint of heart. It requires you to feel everything your lineage has been running from, to face everything they've been denying, to heal everything they've been passing down unconsciously. Breaking generational patterns means you'll often feel alone in your family system. You'll be the one asking uncomfortable questions, setting boundaries that feel foreign, choosing healing over harmony. You'll be misunderstood, labeled as too sensitive or difficult or ungrateful. This is the price of evolution, and it's worth paying. Your healing threatens the family's unconscious agreement to stay wounded. When you refuse to play your role in the dysfunction, everyone else has to confront their own roles. When you stop absorbing others' emotions, they have to learn to handle their own feelings. When you stop rescuing and fixing, others have to take responsibility for their own lives. This disruption is uncomfortable for everyone, but it's necessary for transformation. The wounded mother inside others will try to pull you back into the old patterns. Family members might guilt you for changing, for thinking you're better than us, for abandoning the family. But you're not abandoning anyone. You're graduating from a system that keeps everyone small. You're modeling what's possible when someone chooses healing over habitual pain. This doesn't mean you have to be harsh or disconnected. Boundaries can be held with love. You can honor your family's journey while refusing to sacrifice your own healing. You can love them from a distance if necessary, or love them up close with clear limits about what you'll accept and what you won't. Breaking the chain also means you'll have to grieve what never was and never will be. You'll have to mourn the childhood you deserved, the mother you needed, the family that could have been. This grief is sacred. It's not self-pity. It's honoring what was lost so you can fully claim what's possible now. As you do this work, you'll discover that you're not just healing for yourself. Every time you choose differently, every time you respond from love instead of fear, every time you break a reactive pattern, you're sending healing energy backward and forward through your family line. Your ancestors feel the relief of patterns finally being transformed. Your descendants inherit emotional freedom instead of emotional debt. This is quantum healing, the understanding that healing happens outside of linear time. When you heal your relationship with receiving love, you heal every woman in your lineage who struggled to receive. When you learn to trust your intuition, you restore the connection that was severed generations ago. When you speak your truth without apology, you give voice to all the silenced women who came before you. Now comes the most important work, reclaiming what was always yours. Your voice, your worth, your right to take up space, your permission to be seen, heard, and loved exactly as you are. These were never hers to give or withhold. They were your birthright, your divine inheritance, your soul's non-negotiable truth. For too long, you've been living as if you needed permission to be yourself, as if your authentic expression was too much, too loud, too bright, as if your needs were inconvenient, your emotions were burdensome, your dreams were unrealistic. But these beliefs were never yours. They were the hand-me-downs of a wounded lineage passed down like old clothes that never quite fit. The reclamation begins with your voice. Start speaking your truth even when it trembles. Start saying no without elaborate explanations. Start saying yes to what feeds your soul. Your voice is the key that unlocks every prison you've been living in. Use it. Reclaim your emotions. You were not born to be convenient. You were born to feel deeply, to love fiercely, to experience the full spectrum of human emotion. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It's your superpower. It's what allows you to heal others, to create beauty, to transform pain into purpose. Reclaim your emotions. You were not born to be convenient. You were born to feel deeply, to love fiercely, to experience the full spectrum of human emotion. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It's your superpower. It's what allows you to heal others, to create beauty, to transform pain into purpose. Reclaim your dreams. The goals you've been calling unrealistic are actually just unfamiliar to your family system. What feels impossible to them might be exactly what your soul came here to accomplish. Stop making your dreams smaller to fit into their understanding of what's possible. Reclaim your body. This vessel that carries your spirit deserves to be treated with reverence, not criticism. Learn to move in ways that feel good, eat in ways that nourish, rest when you need rest. Your body is not your enemy. It's your oldest friend, your wisest teacher, your most faithful companion. Reclaim your worthiness. You don't have to earn your place on this planet. You don't have to prove your value through performance or people-pleasing. You exist, therefore you matter. You breathe, therefore you belong. You love, therefore you are lovable. This reclamation is not selfish, it's sacred. When you claim your full self, you give others permission to do the same. When you refuse to live small, you show others what's possible. When you love yourself unconditionally, you become a beacon of possibility for everyone who has forgotten their worth. The woman who couldn't love you properly did give you something precious. She gave you the exact wound that would awaken your capacity for self-love. She gave you the perfect conditions for discovering that the love you seek lives within you. She gave you the opportunity to become the mother, the lover, the friend you always needed. This is the sacred reclamation, not waiting for the world to give you what you deserve, but creating it yourself. From the inside out. Not seeking completion from others, but recognizing your own wholeness. Not begging for love, but becoming love itself. You are ready. You have always been ready. The only thing left to do is begin.